The Force moves in ways beyond mortal comprehension, connecting lives across impossible distances, binding destinies that should never meet. On a forgotten moon orbiting a dying star, two such destinies collided when reality itself fractured. Luke Skywalker had been meditating on Ossus, deep within a Force nexus, when the vision struck him, not of the future, but of the past. A war that would shape everything, a moment when the light needed reinforcement. The Force pulled him backward through time, through dimensions, depositing him in an era he knew only from holocrons and history, the Clone Wars. He materialized in a forest clearing on an unnamed moon, disoriented but alert, his green lightsaber igniting instinctively as he assessed his surroundings. What he found was impossible. A man stood 50 meters away, sword drawn, facing down a pack of Acklay predators that had cornered him against a cliff face. But this was no ordinary man. Luke's Force senses registered something unprecedented, a presence both familiar and alien. Not Force-sensitive in the traditional sense, yet radiating an authority, a nobility that reminded Luke of the greatest Jedi masters he'd known. The man fought with breathtaking skill. His blade, ancient, powerful, inscribed with runes Luke didn't recognize, moved in patterns that spoke of decades of warfare. He was outnumbered 6-1, yet he held his ground with the calm of someone who'd faced darker things than creatures with 4 legs and murderous intent. Luke moved without thinking, his lightsaber humming through the air as he leapt into the fray. The green blade severed an Acklay's claw mid-strike, and Luke landed between the stranger and the predators, his presence in the Force projecting power that made the creatures hesitate. The man's gray eyes widened, not at the glowing sword, but at Luke's sudden appearance. "Another ally in strange lands," he said, his voice weathered but commanding. "My thanks, stranger." Together they drove the Acklay back. Luke's lightsaber work was precise, economical, the style of a master who'd transcended flashy techniques. The stranger's swordsmanship was equally masterful but entirely different, rooted in traditions Luke had never encountered. When the last creature fled into the forest, both men lowered their weapons. "I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn," the ranger said, wiping his blade clean. "Though I suspect that means nothing to you, as this place means nothing to me. I was in Fangorn Forest, pursuing orcs, when light consumed me and deposited me here." He gestured at the alien landscape, twin suns setting over crystal formations. "I have traveled far in my years, but never have I seen a realm such as this." "Luke Skywalker," Luke replied, deactivating his lightsaber. "And you're right, this isn't your world. You're in a galaxy far from anything you've known. As am I, though for different reasons." He studied Aragorn through the Force, sensing the man's essence, integrity, strength tempered by wisdom, a leader who'd earned his authority through sacrifice. "How long have you been here?" 3 days by my count," Aragorn said, sheathing his sword. Anduril, reforged from the shards of Narsil, though Luke couldn't know its significance. "I've encountered strange machines in the sky, beings that speak in languages I don't understand. I've survived, but I need answers." Luke nodded slowly. "I can give you those, but first, we need to get off this moon. There's a war happening in this galaxy, and if my instincts are correct, the Force brought us both here for a reason." "The Force?" Aragorn's brow furrowed. "An energy field created by all living things," Luke explained. "It surrounds us, penetrates us, binds the galaxy together. Some can sense it, manipulate it. I'm what's called a Jedi, a guardian of peace and justice." He paused, studying Aragorn again. "And you have something. Not traditional Force sensitivity, but a presence, a light." Aragorn's expression remained skeptical but open. "In my world, we have legends of powers beyond mortal ken. The elves speak of light that dwells in those of noble bloodlines. I am Dunedain, descended from kings of old, from Numenor before it fell. Perhaps what you sense is that heritage." "Perhaps," Luke agreed. Or perhaps the Force works differently in different people. Either way, you're not here by accident. He activated his comlink, miraculously still functional, and began scanning for Republic signals. There's a war being fought between the Galactic Republic and Separatist forces. The Jedi serve as generals, but he hesitated. This war is more complicated than it appears. There are dark forces at work, manipulations I'm only beginning to understand. I have fought in wars, Aragorn said quietly. I have seen good men corrupted, noble causes twisted. If you say this conflict is complex, I believe you. But where do we stand? Before Luke could answer, the sky erupted with light. A Republic cruiser descended through the atmosphere, pursued by Separatist fighters. The ship was damaged, trailing smoke, clearly trying to make an emergency landing. Luke reached out with the Force, sensing the lives aboard. Jedi signatures, familiar ones. Hold on, Luke said, extending his hand. Using the Force, he reached across the distance and steadied the cruiser's descent, easing its crash landing into a nearby clearing. Aragorn watched with undisguised amazement as the massive ship settled with far more grace than its damage should have allowed. You did that? Aragorn asked. With your mind. The Force does it, Luke corrected. I'm just the conduit. Come on, they'll need help. They ran toward the crash site. Clone troopers were already disembarking, weapons ready, scanning for threats. And emerging from the ship's main hatch were two figures Luke recognized instantly from historical records. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, both younger than the images he'd seen, both moving with the confidence of Jedi in their prime. Obi-Wan's lightsaber ignited as he spotted Luke and Aragorn approaching. Identify yourselves. Master Kenobi, Luke called out, raising his hands peacefully. My name is Luke Skywalker. I'm a Jedi, though not from this time. I know this sounds impossible, but I've been sent here by the Force. He gestured to Aragorn. And this is Aragorn, a warrior from another world entirely. We mean no harm. Anakin stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. Another Jedi? I don't sense you in the Force. He stopped, confusion crossing his face. Wait, I do sense you, but it's like you're not entirely here. Or you're more here than you should be. Because I'm from your future, Luke said simply. Roughly 25 years from now. A Force anomaly pulled me back, and I believe it's because something needs to change in this era. Obi-Wan and Anakin exchanged glances. That's quite a claim, Obi-Wan said carefully. The Jedi Council will need to verify. I know about Order 66, Luke said quietly, and both Jedi froze. I know about the chips in the clones' heads. I know about Palpatine, and I know how this war ends. He met Anakin's eyes. I know what you'll become, Anakin Skywalker. That's why I'm here. To prevent it. The silence stretched like a taut wire. Anakin's hand drifted toward his lightsaber, but Obi-Wan placed a restraining hand on his shoulder. If you truly know the future, Obi-Wan said, then you know how dangerous that knowledge is. Which is why I'm being careful, Luke replied. But right now, you need to get off this moon. Your ship won't fly again without major repairs, and Separatist forces will be here soon. As if summoned by his words, the forest erupted with the metallic march of battle droids. Hundreds of them, surrounding their position, weapons charging. Aragorn drew Anduril, the blade catching the dying sunlight. It seems fate has decided for us. We fight or we die. There's always a third option, Luke said, his lightsaber blazing to life. He looked at Obi-Wan and Anakin. Trust me for the next 10 minutes. I'll prove what I am. And Master Kenobi, watch your former apprentice. He fights with skill, but he's never known true discipline. Not yet. Anakin bristled at the comment. But there was no time to argue. The droids opened fire. What followed was a battle that would be discussed in hushed tones by the clones who witnessed it. 4 warriors, 3 with lightsabers, 1 with an ancient sword, moved through the droid army like a storm-given form. Luke fought with a mastery that made even Obi-Wan pause in recognition. This was Form Phi taken to its ultimate expression, Every movement economical, every deflection purposeful. But more than technique, Luke commanded the Force with a depth neither Obi-Wan nor Anakin had achieved. He didn't just deflect blaster bolts. He redirected them with precision, taking out multiple droids with single gestures. He sensed attacks before they came, moved before enemies fired, protected his allies with barriers of Force energy. And Aragorn fought like something from legend. His sword cleaved through droid armor as if it were parchment. His movements were economical, brutal in their efficiency. He'd faced goblins in Moria, orcs at Helm's Deep, the forces of Mordor itself. Battle droids, for all their numbers, were predictable compared to enemies driven by malice and hatred. He read their targeting patterns, exploited their programming limitations, and turned their precision into a weakness. But what truly amazed the Jedi was how Aragorn and Luke fought together despite having just met. Luke would create openings with the Force, and Aragorn would exploit them instantly. Aragorn would draw fire, and Luke would protect him with perfectly timed deflections. It was as if they'd trained together for years. "He's not Force-sensitive," Anakin said, taking a moment between strikes to watch Aragorn decapitate 3 droids in a single spinning slash. "But he fights like he can predict their movements." "Experience," Obi-Wan observed. "That's a man who's survived hundreds of battles. Look at his discipline. No wasted movement, no emotional investment, pure tactical efficiency." When the last droid fell, Aragorn surveyed the battlefield with the expression of someone who'd seen too much death, even of mechanical enemies. Luke approached him, sensing the weight the Ranger carried. "You've fought in darker wars than this," Luke said quietly. "Aye," Aragorn replied, cleaning his blade. "Wars where the enemy sought not just conquest, but the erasure of all light and hope. I have walked in darkness for many years, fighting that which would consume my world." He looked at Luke. "Tell me true. Is this war you speak of, this conflict in your galaxy, is it as dark?" "Darker," Luke admitted, "because the darkness wears the face of light. The Republic believes it fights for freedom, but it's being manipulated by a Sith Lord, a dark side user, who's orchestrating both sides of the war to seize absolute power." Obi-Wan had approached during this exchange. "You speak of Sith as if they're real. The Sith have been extinct for—" "They're not extinct," Luke said. "Master Kenobi, in my timeline, I was trained by you, by the man you'll become. And you told me the truth about my father, about how Anakin Skywalker fell to the dark side and became Darth Vader, the Sith Lord who would serve Emperor Palpatine." The words hit like physical blows. Anakin staggered back. "That's impossible. I would never." "You will," Luke said, his voice filled with compassion rather than accusation. "Unless something changes. And I believe Aragorn is part of that change." He turned to the Ranger. "You've led armies. You've resisted corruption that would have broken most men. In my world, there's a legend about a ring of power that could dominate all others, and you refused to take it even when it could have helped you win your war. Is that true?" Aragorn's eyes widened. "How could you know that?" "The Force shows me many things," Luke said, "and it showed me this. You are incorruptible in ways even the strongest Jedi aren't. That nobility, that strength of character, it's exactly what this galaxy needs, what the Jedi Order needs." "You want to train him?" Anakin asked incredulously. "He's not Force-sensitive." "Isn't he?" Luke gestured, and Aragorn felt something stir within him, a warmth, a connection to everything around him. The trees, the stones, the very air hummed with energy he'd never noticed before. "The Force exists in all living things, Anakin. Some can manipulate it actively. Others embody its principles without conscious effort. Aragorn has walked in harmony with his world for decades. He's a healer, a king, a servant of the light. The Force is already with him. He just doesn't know it yet." Aragorn steadied himself as the sensation faded. "What you describe, in my world, the elves speak of such harmony, of song that binds all creation. Are you saying this Force of yours is similar? Perhaps different expressions of the same truth," Luke suggested. He looked at Obi-Wan. Master Kenobi, I need time. Time to train Aragorn. Time to prove what I am. Time to change what's coming. Give me that chance. Obi-Wan studied Luke for a long moment, then glanced at Anakin. Through the Force, Master and former apprentice communicated silently. Finally, Obi-Wan nodded. We'll take you to Coruscant, Obi-Wan decided. The Council will want to hear your claims, but Luke, if you're lying, if this is some elaborate separatist trick, then I'll face judgment, Luke said. But I'm not lying, and before this is over, you'll see proof enough. As they prepared to leave the moon aboard a rescue shuttle that arrived an hour later, Aragorn stood beside Luke, watching the stars through the viewport. In my world, Aragorn said quietly, I was meant to be king, to unite my people and lead them against darkness. If what you say is true, if I'm truly trapped in this galaxy, then I've abandoned my duty, my people, my love. His voice cracked slightly on the last word. The Force doesn't make mistakes, Luke said gently. If you're here, it's because you're needed here as much as there. And I promise you, Aragorn, we will find a way to return you home. But first, let me teach you to wield a different kind of power. Let me show you what it means to be a Jedi. Aragorn gripped Andril's hilt. Very well, Luke Skywalker. I will learn your ways. But know this, I will not abandon my principles, no matter what power you offer. I will not become something I'm not. Luke smiled. That's exactly why you're perfect for this. The Jedi Order has lost its way, because too many of them have forgotten who they are beneath the robes and titles. You'll remind them. And maybe, just maybe, you'll help save a young Jedi Knight from falling to darkness. He glanced toward the front of the shuttle where Anakin sat, brooding and confused. If anyone can show Anakin Skywalker what true nobility looks like, Luke continued, it's a king who chose duty over power, service over dominion, and love over corruption. The shuttle jumped to hyperspace, carrying legends across time and space toward a destiny that would reshape the galaxy itself. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant had witnessed countless extraordinary events across millennia, but the arrival of Luke Skywalker and Aragorn created ripples through the Force that every sensitive within the temple felt simultaneously. In the council chambers, Master Yoda's ears twitched as he sensed something unprecedented. A disturbance that tasted of both past and future, of destinies converging that should never have met. Luke stood before the council with Aragorn at his side, facing the semicircle of the galaxy's most powerful Jedi. Mace Windu's expression was skeptical, Yoda's thoughtful, and the others ranged from curious to hostile. Obi-Wan and Anakin flanked them, having vouched for Luke's combat prowess, if not his impossible claims. Interesting, your story is, Yoda said, his ancient eyes studying Luke with unnerving intensity. From the future you claim to be, and this warrior, from another world entirely? His gaze shifted to Aragorn, who stood with the bearing of royalty despite his worn ranger's garb. Strong in the Force, he is not, yet something different about him there is. He carries a light, Luke said carefully. In his world, he's known as Aragorn, son of Arathorn, heir to the throne of Gondor. He's fought against darkness for decades, resisted corruption that would have destroyed most beings, and led armies against impossible odds. The Force may not flow through him as it does through Jedi, but he embodies its principles more truly than many who can wield it. Mace Windu leaned forward. You claim to be from 25 years in our future. You claim to know how this war ends. That's a dangerous claim, especially if you're a separatist agent using some new technology to... I'm not separatist, Luke interrupted, his tone respectful but firm. Master Windu, in my timeline, you died defending the Republic from the very man who's orchestrating this war. You discovered the truth about Chancellor Palpatine, that he's Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord behind everything, and he killed you for it. threw you from his office window using Force lightning." The council chamber went deathly silent. Several Jedi hands moved toward lightsabers. Mace Windu's expression darkened dangerously. "That," Windu said slowly, "is an accusation of treason against the Supreme Chancellor. You'd better have proof." "I have knowledge," Luke said. "Knowledge of things that haven't happened yet. The chip conspiracy and the clone troopers, Order 66, a command that will turn them against the Jedi. The true identity of Darth Tyrannus. The location of General Grievous's fortress on Utapau. The fall of—" He stopped himself, glancing at Anakin. "The fall of the Republic and the rise of the Empire." Yoda closed his eyes, reaching deep into the Force. When he opened them again, they held a weariness that aged him beyond his 9 centuries. See into his mind, I have tried. Clouded his future is, but truth in his words, I sense. Impossible to verify it is, yet lies, I sense none. This could still be an elaborate deception, Ki-Adi-Mundi argued. "Then let me prove it," Luke said. "Give me 2 weeks. Let me train Aragorn in the Force, and let us accompany a mission. Judge us by our actions, not our words." He looked directly at Yoda. "Master Yoda, you once told me, will tell me, that a Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack. That's wisdom this Order has forgotten in this war. Let Aragorn and I remind you what it means to be true guardians of peace." Aragorn, who had remained silent throughout the exchange, finally spoke. His voice carried natural authority that made even the council masters pause. "I know nothing of your politics, your Force, or your wars, but I recognize corruption when I see it, and I recognize honor as well. Luke Skywalker risked his life to save mine on that moon. He fights with skill but without hatred. If he says darkness threatens your republic, I believe him. In my world, I've learned that evil often wears noble faces and speaks with honeyed words. If you wish proof of our intentions, give us the chance to demonstrate them in battle." Mace Windu studied Aragorn with new respect. "You speak like a leader." "I am a chieftain of the Dunedain," Aragorn replied, "and heir to a throne I've not yet claimed. I understand duty and sacrifice. If I'm trapped in this galaxy, I will not stand idle while darkness spreads, whether I understand your ways or not." The council deliberated in hushed tones. Finally, Yoda nodded. "A chance, we will give you. To Christophsis, you will go. Battle there intensifies. Prove yourselves, you must. Young Skywalker." He looked at Anakin. "With them, you will travel. Watch them carefully, you will." Anakin bowed, though his expression showed conflict. Since learning Luke claimed to be from the future, and implied terrible things about Anakin's own destiny, the young Jedi Knight had been wrestling with doubt and anger. As they left the council chambers, Anakin grabbed Luke's arm. "You said I become this Darth Vader. You said I fall to the dark side, but you won't tell me how or why. That's not fair." Luke's expression filled with compassion. "Anakin, if I tell you every detail, I might prevent the fall but destroy the lesson. The path to the dark side is paved with good intentions, with love turned to possessive fear, with desire to protect becoming willingness to dominate. You're not evil. You're one of the best men I've ever known. But you're also afraid. Afraid of loss, afraid of not being strong enough. That fear is what the dark side will exploit." "So what am I supposed to do?" Anakin demanded. "Learn from him," Luke said, nodding toward Aragorn, who walked ahead with Obi-Wan. "That man loves someone too, a woman named Arwen, an immortal who will give up eternity to be with him. The pain of potentially losing her is unimaginable. Yet he doesn't let that fear control him. He doesn't grasp. He doesn't seek power to prevent loss. He accepts that some things are beyond his control and trusts in something greater than himself." Anakin watched Aragorn's confident stride, the way the ranger carried himself with quiet strength rather than desperate intensity. "How do you know about his love?" "The Force showed me," Luke said, "just as it's showing me that your love for Padme doesn't have to destroy you." It can save you if you let it be selfless rather than possessive. Anakin's eyes widened. How did you? Nobody knows about. In my timeline, your secret contributed to your fall, Luke said gently. Because you were so afraid of losing her that you made terrible choices trying to save her. Anakin, love isn't wrong. Attachment, the inability to let go. That's what the Jedi warn against. There's a difference. Before Anakin could respond, Obi-Wan called back to them. We depart for Christophsis in 3 hours. Luke, you said you wanted to train Aragorn. You'd better start now. What followed were the most intensive 3 hours of instruction Aragorn had ever experienced. In the temple's training rooms, Luke guided him through basic meditation, teaching him to feel the Force consciously for the first time. In your world, you've lived in harmony with nature, Luke explained, sitting cross-legged across from Aragorn. You've tracked enemies through forests, sensed weather changes, perhaps even felt when danger approached. That's Force sensitivity expressing itself naturally. Now we're going to make it conscious. Aragorn closed his eyes, following Luke's instructions. At first, there was nothing. Then, gradually, he felt it. A warmth spreading from his center, connecting him to everything around him. The living Force, Luke called it. He could sense Luke's presence like a beacon of light. Could feel Anakin's turmoil nearby, a storm of conflicting emotions. Could even perceive the thousands of Jedi throughout the temple, each one a note in a vast symphony. Good, Luke encouraged. Now, hold out your hand. Don't think about moving the object, think about connecting with it. Everything is connected through the Force. You're not imposing your will, you're asking. Aragorn extended his hand toward a training remote hovering nearby. For long minutes, nothing happened. Then, trembling slightly, the remote drifted an inch toward him. Luke smiled. In 2 hours, you've done what takes some Padawans months. Your mind is disciplined from decades of survival in the wild. You don't doubt, you simply do. That's rare. I've faced enough impossibilities to accept what my senses tell me, Aragorn replied. If this Force is real, and I feel that it is, then I'll learn to work with it as I've learned every other skill, through practice and humility. By the time they boarded the Republic cruiser for Christophsis, Aragorn could sense danger seconds before it manifested, could enhance his already formidable physical abilities with Force augmentation, and could project a presence in the Force that inspired confidence in those around him, a natural extension of his kingly authority. Christophsis was burning when they arrived. Separatist forces had pushed the Republic back to a single fortified position, and waves of battle droids threatened to overwhelm the clone defenders. General Grievous himself commanded the assault, determined to claim the Crystal Planet as a strategic victory. The situation is desperate, Obi-Wan briefed them as the cruiser descended through heavy fire. We're outnumbered 5-1. The 212th and 501st are holding the main gate, but they can't hold much longer. Our mission is to break through the droid lines, destroy the Separatist command center, and force Grievous to retreat. A suicide mission, Aragorn observed calmly, checking his sword and the blaster rifle Obi-Wan had provided. I've led those before. What's our actual objective? Survive, Anakin said with dark humor, and make them regret attacking in the first place. The battle was chaos incarnate. Clone troopers, hundreds of them, held defensive positions as endless waves of battle droids advanced. Blaster fire painted the crystal formations with red and blue light. Explosions shook the ground. The air tasted of ozone and burning metal. Luke, Aragorn, Anakin, and Obi-Wan emerged from the cruiser directly into the hellstorm. And immediately, Luke and Aragorn proved they were something the Separatists hadn't anticipated. Luke fought with the calm mastery of a Jedi who'd trained Jedi, who'd faced Sith Lords and lived. His lightsaber moved in patterns that seemed impossible, deflecting volleys of blaster fire back at their sources with precision, creating shields of Force energy to protect advancing clones, reading the battlefield 10 moves ahead, and positioning himself where he was needed most. The ranger charged into the droid lines with Anduril blazing, his sword enhanced by the Force to cut through even super battle droids. But more than his combat prowess, it was his voice, his command presence, that changed everything. "Men of the Republic!" Aragorn's voice carried across the battlefield with Force-enhanced projection, reaching every clone trooper. "I am Aragorn of the Dunedain, and I fought in wars that would break this galaxy. You are not droids, you are not machines programmed to die. You are warriors, brothers, and today you will show these metal mockeries what true soldiers can achieve." The clones rallied. Something in Aragorn's voice, the absolute certainty, the respect, the acknowledgement of their personhood, ignited something within them. They fought harder, coordinated better, took risks they'd never dared before because this strange warrior believed in them. Commander Cody watched in amazement as his troops transformed from desperate defenders into an organized force. "Who is that man?" he asked Obi-Wan over the comm. "Someone who's led armies to victory against darker enemies than droids," Obi-Wan replied, his own fighting benefiting from Aragorn's tactical insights shouted across the battlefield. And apparently, exactly what we needed. The tide turned. Luke and Aragorn carved a path toward the Separatist command center, with Anakin and Obi-Wan flanking them. Clone troopers followed in their wake, inspired by Aragorn's leadership and protected by Luke's mastery of the Force. Then Grievous appeared. The cyborg general emerged from his command ship, 4 lightsabers igniting in his mechanical hands, his yellow eyes fixed on the Jedi. "More Jedi to add to my collection," Grievous hissed. "And what's this? An old man and a primitive with a sword? You insult me." "I've faced far worse than you," Aragorn said quietly, stepping forward. "I've stood against the Nazgul, servants of the Dark Lord who could break minds with their mere presence. You're just metal and malice. Nothing I haven't defeated before." Grievous lunged, his 4 lightsabers creating a whirlwind of death. But Aragorn didn't flinch. Enhanced by the Force, guided by Luke's quick coaching and his own combat instincts, he met the cyborg's assault. Anduril rang against lightsaber blades, the ancient sword somehow withstanding energy that should have melted it. Perhaps protected by the elvish craftsmanship, perhaps by the Force itself responding to Aragorn's nobility. Luke joined the fight, his lightsaber covering Aragorn's openings, creating opportunities for the Ranger to exploit. Anakin and Obi-Wan engaged from the flanks, and Grievous, for the first time in many battles, found himself outmatched, not in power, but in coordination and purpose. "They fight as one," Obi-Wan observed, watching Luke and Aragorn move in perfect synchronization, as if they've trained together for years. "That's what true warriors do," Anakin realized. Something shifting in his understanding. They don't compete for glory. They serve the mission, serve each other. Aragorn saw his opening. Grievous overextended on a strike toward Luke. The Ranger's sword flashed, severed 2 of the cyborg's arms, and followed through with a force push that sent Grievous sprawling. "You may collect lightsabers," Aragorn said, standing over the fallen general, "but you've never faced someone who fights for something greater than conquest. Surrender, and your troops stand down. Refuse, and I end this now." For a moment, it seemed Grievous might surrender. Then a new presence made itself known. A presence dark, powerful, and ancient. Count Dooku materialized via hologram, his aristocratic features twisted with interest. "Fascinating," Dooku said, studying Aragorn. "A warrior who resists the dark side so naturally. Tell me, stranger, what prevents you from taking power when it's offered? Why serve the Republic when you could rule?" "Because I've been offered power before," Aragorn replied, sheathing his sword, as Grievous retreated to his ship. "A ring that could have given me dominion over all my world. I refused it because power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I serve because leadership means sacrifice, not dominion. Something you've forgotten, Count." Dooku's eyes narrowed. "You know my title, and you speak with the wisdom of someone who suffered greatly. But wisdom without power is merely philosophy. The Republic is corrupt, dying. The Jedi Order has failed. Only through the Sith can order be restored. The Sith offer only chains disguised as freedom, Luke interjected, stepping beside Aragorn. I've seen where that path leads, Count Dooku. I've seen the empire that will rise from this war's ashes if the Sith succeed. Billions enslaved, worlds destroyed, darkness triumphant. That's not order, it's tyranny. And you would know. Dooku's interest sharpened. Who are you, truly? Someone from a timeline where the Sith won, Luke said. Where Anakin Skywalker fell and became Darth Vader. Where you were cast aside once your usefulness ended. Where Palpatine ruled for decades until his own hubris destroyed him. I've come back to prevent that future. And Aragorn is proof that another way exists. That nobility and strength can coexist without corruption. Dooku was silent for a long moment. Then, we shall see, mysterious Jedi. We shall see if your noble ranger can truly resist the dark side when his principles are tested by impossible choices. This war has many battles yet to come. The hologram vanished. Grievous's ship retreated into atmosphere, the separatist forces withdrawing. The Battle of Christophsis was won, not through overwhelming force, but through inspired leadership and coordinated excellence. As the clones cheered, Aragorn stood apart, looking up at the stars with longing in his eyes. Luke approached quietly. You're thinking of home, Luke said. Always, Aragorn admitted. Of Arwen, of my people, of the throne I was meant to claim. Every moment here is a moment I'm failing them. The Force brought you here for a reason, Luke said. And I promise you, we'll find a way to send you back. But first, you have work to do here. Did you see how those clones responded to you? How Anakin watched you fight without jealousy or competition? You're showing them something they've never seen. True nobility without the Jedi's emotional detachment, strength without arrogance. I'm no teacher, Aragorn protested. You don't have to be. Luke smiled. You just have to be yourself. That's the lesson this galaxy needs most. Commander Cody approached, removing his helmet. Sir, Aragorn, was it? The men wanted me to tell you, we've never fought like that before. You made us feel like we mattered, like we were more than just numbers. You are more, Aragorn said firmly. Every soldier under my command in my world had a name, a story, people who loved them. Never let anyone tell you otherwise, Cody's eyes glistened. Thank you, sir. As night fell over Christophsis, the Jedi and clones gathered around fires amid the crystal formations. Aragorn shared stories of Middle-earth, of the Fellowship, of battles at Helm's Deep and the Black Gate, of friendships that transcended all boundaries. The clones listened with rapt attention, hearing tales of warriors who fought for each other rather than just following orders. Anakin sat beside Luke, watching Aragorn inspire the troops simply by treating them as equals. He's what I should be, isn't he? Anakin said quietly. Strong but not arrogant, powerful but not controlling. He's what all Jedi should aspire to be, Luke corrected. But Anakin, he's had 87 years to become this man. He's made mistakes, suffered losses, nearly fell to darkness himself. The difference is he learned from those experiences rather than being consumed by them. You can learn the same lessons without falling. How? Anakin asked desperately. How do I not become this Vader? By choosing love over fear, Luke said. By trusting in the Force, rather than trying to control every outcome. By accepting that loss is part of life, painful, terrible, but natural. And by learning that true strength comes from letting go, not holding tighter. He looked at Aragorn, who sat among the clones sharing laughter and fellowship. That man knows he'll die someday. Knows everyone he loves will die. But that knowledge doesn't make him desperate or controlling. It makes him cherish every moment more deeply. That's the wisdom you need, Anakin. That's what will save you. In the days that followed, Luke continued training Aragorn while both men worked alongside the Jedi. Aragorn's Force abilities grew rapidly, not to the level of lifting starships, but refined in ways that complemented his existing skills. His tracking became supernatural, his combat precognition razor-sharp, his leadership presence a beacon in the Force that inspired hope in those around him. More importantly, his mere presence began changing the Jedi Order's perspective. Here was a warrior of immense skill who meditated not on the Force but on honor, who loved deeply without possessiveness, who led without commanding, who served without losing himself. The Council took notice. Even Mace Windu grudgingly admitted that Aragorn embodied Jedi principles more purely than many who'd trained their entire lives. 3 months after arriving in the Clone Wars era, Luke and Aragorn stood in the temple meditation gardens, watching Coruscant's sunset paint the sky in colors neither Middle-earth nor Luke's original timeline had ever shown. "The Council believes me now," Luke said. "They're investigating Palpatine quietly. It may not prevent everything, but it's a start." Aragorn nodded slowly. "And you found a way to return me?" "A Force nexus on Mortis," Luke confirmed. "The same type of dimensional anomaly that brought us both here. It will open in 2 weeks. You can go home, Aragorn. Back to Arwen, back to your destiny as king." "And you?" Aragorn asked. "I stay," Luke said. "At least long enough to ensure Anakin doesn't fall. To help the Jedi remember what they're meant to be." "The Force brought me here for that purpose." Aragorn gripped Luke's shoulder. "You've given me a gift I never expected. Knowledge of a galaxy beyond my imagining, and the ability to touch this Force of yours. When I return, I'll carry those lessons with me. Perhaps the elves will understand what I've experienced. Perhaps I'll tell Arwen about the stars beyond stars. Tell her about the warrior from those distant stars who showed a galaxy what true nobility looks like," Luke suggested. "Tell her that her love inspired soldiers in another universe simply by the example you set in her name." Over the following weeks, Aragorn said his farewells. The clones of the 501st and 212th held a ceremony in his honor, unprecedented for someone outside their ranks. Anakin and Obi-Wan trained with him one final time, absorbing lessons about honor and service. Even Master Yoda spent an evening in conversation with the Ranger, discussing leadership, sacrifice, and the nature of light and darkness. When the time came, Luke and Aragorn stood at the Mortis Nexus, a shimmering tear in reality that showed glimpses of Middle-earth beyond. "You've changed this galaxy," Luke said. "The clones fight differently now, with purpose and identity. The Jedi are questioning their role in the war. And Anakin, he's learning what strength without corruption looks like. That's your legacy, Aragorn." "Then I leave this galaxy in capable hands," Aragorn replied. He drew Anduril one last time, offering it hilt first to Luke. "Take this, a blade from another world, carried by one who never fell to darkness. Let it remind you and the Jedi of what you're fighting to preserve, not power, but the light that lives in every free heart." Luke accepted the sword with reverence. "It will be honored. And when this war ends, when the Sith are defeated and the Jedi rebuilt, I'll make sure your story is remembered. The Ranger who walked between stars and showed us all what it means to be truly noble." Aragorn smiled, rare and genuine. "May the Force be with you, Luke Skywalker. And may you find in your galaxy what I found in mine, that the smallest person can change the course of the future, and that hope remains while the company is true." He stepped through the rift, and Middle-earth reclaimed its king. Luke stood alone, holding Anduril, feeling the residual warmth of Aragorn's presence in the Force. The Ranger had been in this galaxy for only 3 months, yet his impact would ripple through decades. Clone troopers now fought with unprecedented morale, questioning their purpose and discovering their humanity. Jedi across the Order debated what nobility without Force power looked like and whether they'd lost sight of such virtues. And Anakin Skywalker, young, troubled, teetering on the edge of darkness, had witnessed firsthand that love, properly embraced, strengthened rather than corrupted. The Clone Wars continued, but something fundamental had shifted. A legend from another world had walked among them, fought beside them, and reminded them all that power without principle was merely tyranny wearing a different mask. In the archives, new entries appeared. The Ranger's teachings, compiled from his conversations with clones and Jedi alike. In training sessions, instructors referenced Aragorn's principle, that leadership meant service and sacrifice, not domination. And in the quiet moments before battle, clone troopers whispered the words the Ranger had spoken. "You are not numbers. You are warriors, brothers, and you matter." Luke Skywalker remained in the Clone Wars era, armed now with both a lightsaber and the Sword of Kings, working to ensure that Aragorn's brief presence would have lasting impact. The Sith plot still unfolded, the war still raged, but hope, true, uncorrupted hope, had been rekindled. And across the galaxy, in thousands of small moments, that hope would prove to be the most powerful force of all.